Hello YouTube, Sebastian Lemke aka LampyYGeo here. We've been talking about Master Duel a lot in the last couple of weeks, but today we very much have to talk about a TCG topic because the new Forbidden Unlimited list has just been announced and it has been 2 days ago now. So this is not going to be a live reaction video to the Forbidden Unlimited list, but we already have made ourselves some thoughts regarding the list and regarding the format that is going to come out of it, and that's what I'm trying to talk about with you. So it's more of an analysis video regarding the list. I hope you will still enjoy it. So let's very quickly look at the list. Most of you have most likely seen it already, but yeah. In the Forbidden section we have Artifact Scythe, various Statue of the Stormwinds, Tearlaman's Kit Colors, and Sprite Elf. Then on the Limited section we see all the Ishizus and all the Tearlaman fusion names. So Agido, Kelbek, Keldor, Mujora, Hafnis, Merli, Shiren, and then also that Ancient Fairy Dragon that probably is not going to do a whole lot. And then in the Unlimited section we have Destrudo, Jet Synchron, Olion, Servant of Endymion, Lithosagem, Yatagarasu, and Spiral Resort. So, now there's one big question. Have you subscribed to the channel yet? That is a very big question. So if you're watching right now and you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate you subscribing in. That would help supporting the channel and growing the channel as well. So definitely make sure to do so. But the real question, of course, is there one best deck from now on? Because we are coming out of a meta game where there was one big deck for the longest time. Tearlaman's Ishizu was very much a tier 0 deck. And are we going to have another tier 0 format, or is it not going to be like that? And as you can already see on the pie chart, those are definitely not going to be the decks that are going to be in the format, but my answer is it's probably going to be split up a lot. It's not going to be one big deck. We are going to talk about multiple decks being in contention for the top contender spot in the meta game. Because the easiest thought would be, hey, Kashtira gets insane support, Kashtira should have been a top contender without the list, so it's probably just going to be the best deck. But Kashtira, by its engine, does not really seem like a deck that can be the best deck, because it is very easy to counter with specific tech cards, and when people are running those tech cards in masses, like Book of Eclipse and stuff like that, I don't see the deck strive that much, and therefore I don't believe it can be the best deck over everything else. So I do think other decks will definitely be in competition with the deck. And let's see what the decks are. I went over this with the chat on my live stream and on Twitch as well, and those are the decks that we think will be the top contenders. We tried to find the top 3 decks first, that didn't work, so we had to go with the top 6 decks we think are very viable for the upcoming format. First of all, of course, Kashtira is still going to be one of those decks, not the tier 0 deck of all times, but definitely still a very, very viable pick going forward. Then Branded, with the new support from Photon Hypernova, all of a sudden seems like a really, really, really decent pick, and it may as well be one of the top 3 decks in the upcoming meta. So looks like the Branded players are once again getting rewarded, and that is definitely a deck that I will have my eyes on in the future. And then there are not that many combo decks going forward, but one combo deck is standing out to me, and it is the Adventure Libromancer Mikanko combo pile, aka based version 3 by Gabriel Nats. I think there is still some fine-tuning to do with the deck, but it looks like an amazingly fun to play combo deck, and the ceiling also looks very, very high, and therefore I do believe it is maybe even the best combo deck in the upcoming format. Then in the next decks we have our Runic and Sprite variations. So Runic Sprite was basically the best deck before Ishizu Shufflers were coming into the game. And now the Ishizu Shufflers are basically going to be gone again, so let's go Runic Sprite. I think it's a very, very, very viable pick for the upcoming meta. And also Runic Stun doesn't sound too bad either. All kind of Runic variations. Maybe there's another Sprite variation that is just non-stop OTKing and doesn't need Sprite Elf as recovery as follow-up, and therefore I do see Runic and Sprite variations definitely still in contention for the top meta contender. And then the next deck is Labyrinth. Labyrinth gets insane support in Photon Hypernova as well, and even without the list, it was considered to be the best trap deck in the upcoming meta. And now there's not even Tearlaments to fight against anymore as the big deck that you have to prepare for heavily. And therefore I think Labyrinth is really a sleeper pick that might very well get a bunch of top card spots in the next YCS that we're having with this list. So YCS Las Vegas, I can definitely see like 5 or 6 Labyrinth decks in there without a problem. This deck seems really good. Even going second, it's kind of fine, even though it's a trap deck, and therefore Labyrinth could be the actual call for the upcoming meta. And then, last but not least, we have Sword Soul. Sword Soul was not really touched with the list either and gets some support in Photon Hypernova too. It will have to change its approach a little bit because Bystials are not going to be the main weapon of the deck anymore. But I'm pretty sure that Sword Soul is variable enough to go into a different direction, and therefore I do believe that Sword Soul is also one of the best decks for the upcoming meta. But also, one question, we have not talked about the Tearlaments deck. How viable is Tear from now on? Because the hits were severe, as we saw at the beginning of the video. So is that going to be a deck that you can still play, or is it just going to be unplayable from now on? And my answer is, I do very much think that you can find ways to still make the deck work. King of the Swamp says hello, that's definitely a card you gotta play. Also, Diviner in multiple numbers is probably going to be a good card from now on. And I think it's definitely still a tier 2 deck. And when people find like really good versions of this deck, it might even turn out to be a better contender, being in the top 5 decks in the end. So I'm really interested to see where this tier deck is developing from now, and I would for sure not call it dead just yet. Next up, Bystials. Bystials were everywhere in the last format because they're so good versus the Tearlaments deck. But now Tearlaments is going to go down in popularity drastically, so is it even worth playing Bystials from now on? Everybody was basically main decking Magnamoons and Druid's Worms in the last format, targeting all the Shizu decks, or Shizu tier decks rather. And are you still going to just main deck them from now on because they're good DD Crows? And honestly, I think you want to have those in a side deck because they still have really good matchups against, but they probably will move into the side deck first of all. Despia will play them in the main deck, of course, because they are extenders for the deck, Lubellion and Saronir specifically, but the other decks probably are moving their Bystial lineup into the side deck from now on. And then, last but not least, I also want to talk about the Floowandereeze deck. Is this deck any good from now on? Because they just lost Barrier Statue, and that was like the auto-win button of the deck. Is it still going to be any good? Do we still have a chance when we enter a competitive tournament with Empen and his friends? And I don't think it's going to be a top contender anymore. I think boards are going to be too easy to break from now on without the Barrier Statue, and therefore just a singular board breaker, just a singular Imperm on the Empen can most likely just stop the entire deck. But still, it's going to be a very, very viable rogue pick. The follow-up this deck has, the ability to play on your opponent's turn, it doesn't lose that. It just loses that auto win button. And I think we can compare it to the deck on Master Duel. On Master Duel, the Barrier Statue was gone before it was gone in the TCG. And the deck still had some success. It's definitely not disappearing completely. It still had success in the Duelist Cup action and also in Challenger Cup competitions. So it's definitely a viable rogue pick. Definitely still a very good deck going first. But it's definitely not going to be super tier 1 potential anymore. So, thank you very much for listening. This is my opinion on the new list. If you have any other opinions, if you think something I said was completely off and wrong, definitely make sure to tell me in the comments and engage in the conversation about the new Forbidden Unlimited list, which we are going to play with from next week on. See you in Lyon, everybody, where I will be commentating BYCS. It will be a wild week from now on.